lunch line, so I appreciate everyone finishing lunch and coming on in. This is a highly discussed session, much anticipated around AI because I know it's a hot topic. So what I'd love to do, I'm gonna kind of intro a little bit about our panelists, about their organizations, and then let them talk about a little bit about their roles, and then we can jump into some questions because I'm personally excited to kind of host today's festivities. So starting with Cohere. Cohere is a Canadian organization, which we're very excited about. And they're a leading organization within AI and security, and really focused on the enterprise space. And then we have Sabah here, and Sabah is kind of a big deal in the creative world. Plusco is within the Cassette family, a newly created organization, kind of focused on design entrepreneurship. And I'd love maybe to start with you, Sabah, your role there and what you're most excited about this kind of new venture that's been created.
I've spent the last 2.5 years as the Chief Creative and Innovation Officer, and I pitched our CFO and our CEO on building a venture studio so that we can move faster with AI and fintech for our clients. And so the idea is, when you think of how fast startups move and how slow regular companies move, it was really about saying, can we build faster and innovate faster by bringing those together? So it's 8 weeks old, and we have 7 companies in our cohort, and so we're building.
That's exciting. Congratulations on such a quick start. Claude.
So I'm the first marketing hire at Cohere. I had the pleasure of seeing it grow from, I think we were 50 when we started, to 400. And so I've really seen the evolution, and I've had the pleasure of being at the intersection of both AI as a service and a solution for enterprises to really be at the forefront, and a marketer. And then how I use AI in marketing has also been really exciting for me to apply what we're selling into my own practice.
Amazing. And then Robin, you're the last one. Last but not least.
My name is Robin. I was the first sales hire at Cohere a little over 3 years ago. At the time, kind of worked with a mix of startups, mid-market, and large enterprise customers. Now I focus on our largest enterprise and strategic customers, including RBC.
Phenomenal. I'll get kind of the first, maybe difficult question out of the way. I know that there's sometimes some resistance to change. And AI is an ever-changing world, and especially when you focus on the enterprise space. So maybe I'll start with Sabah. How do you address resistance or skepticism related to new technologies or AI in particular within your role?
So it's probably the first time I had to think about what change management actually is. And Cassette has 800 people, the holding company is 3,300 people, and AI came on fast. And I think about what were the most successful initiatives that we did were when we actually had tools or did hands-on workshops where people actually got to build things with some of the technologies that we're going to use. So there's that one layer of being very hands-on that really helped calm people down. And then the second layer is, how do we keep up with the pace of learning? But we've got basically a learning and development team that has now built programming, so we're systematically moving it forward so that people don't feel overwhelmed at once. AI is here to stay, so let's do it a little bit at a time.
Remove some of the mysticism around
Yes.
it. And Robin, I think similar question for you, because I think that's a large portion of your role, speaking to enterprise and mid-market. How do you kind of combat some of that resistance or skepticism they may have to this new technology?
Yeah, so the way we think about it, and I think the way our customers think about it, is that AI is not about replacement, it's about augmentation. It's about providing tools that allow people to have more leverage, get more done, be more efficient, and move from, even if you do have sort of an IC role, to allow you to instead become a bit more of a manager with digital assistants that can take away some of the more painful or frustrating aspects of your job and free up more time for higher impact activities.
Maybe some nomenclature first to start, because as I was digging into this world, I just wanted the difference between agents and chatbots and AI search and their different roles, kind of open for the panel. Anyone who kind of wants to jump in around the differences there.
Yeah, so I can start on this. So agents are like super buzzy right now. Everyone uses the term. I think very few people know what it actually means.
I did not.
And I think it doesn't need to be so mystical. So anytime you hear the word agent, just replace it with workflow. An agent is just a workflow that you have defined to carry out a task in a specific way. So anything you want to do at work, if you can sort of describe what are the different tasks that need to be done, what are the different applications or data sources that as a human I would interact with in the course of accomplishing that task. If you can just describe that task to a system, the system should be able to interpret, okay, I need to go to this structured database to get this piece of information. I then need to combine it with this other piece of information over here, perform a summary, things like this. And in this way, you can define agents, but it's really just about automating specific subtasks in your workflow. And over time, as you collect more and more of these, you can combine them, and your agent can become increasingly sort of general purpose and handle more abstract tasks. But it's really not as complicated as a lot of people seem to make it out to be.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add, what we've found to be the most powerful part of agents is when they're based in the data that you have internally. So the tools that we've built for customers and for ourselves that I use all the time is being able to ask the agent a question around our customers, for example, or our latest releases, instead of having to go through Google Drive searching for where is that document, what is the question. I can ask a conversational question to the system, and the agents come back to me with an answer. So if I wanted to uncover an insight for a marketing campaign that we're running, maybe with Sabah, we would be able to say, how many audiences in Toronto are married at this income and have currently searched our product? So being able to then decipher that information using a lot of the technology that Cohere has built, but that other systems that are also available out there for you to use, it can really become a powerful assistant, to Robin's point. And the only other thing to add to that is the security piece is so important. You really can't use these tools at your enterprise without being security minded and thinking of the customer's data being secure within your space. So it's not without that concept in mind. We have to just make sure on the skepticism question that we're always addressing, that might be something top of mind, but that we can also make sure that people can ask your system any question they want to power their marketing campaigns or sales initiatives or anything that different teams are doing.
And be confident that the answers are going to be correct and that they're going to be secure in the data that they research. Maybe to expand on AI's role in marketing, you kind of talked a little bit about customer segmentation, but also kind of automation in marketing, or kind of how AI in particular, you see it affecting the tasks or the strategy of marketing over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Maybe Sabah, you want to start?
So the first thing that comes to mind is everyone is overwhelmed with data. We've been talking about big data, big data, big data, and most humans end up with so much information in front of them that it becomes hard to make a decision. So one of the first things that we look for are, what are tools that we can use that actually give you confidence in your decision making, knowing that an AI can actually interpret the pattern of what's going on better than any human can. So you can actually increase your confidence by having that kind of support, because everyone is overwhelmed and we're not used to being able to manage conflicting information sometimes.
Kind of turn data into insights that you can action upon. Very cool. Anything to add?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, customer segmentation
Yes.
or marketing automation, or kind of how you see marketing changed over the next few years.
Yeah, actually, Sabah and I were just talking about this before, but it was prior to my role at Cohere, I was at Google, and it was just a really interesting shift in the marketing space to see that we used to define the profiles that wanted our products, but now the world of the internet can be defining who that audience is to you. What I think some of Sabah's work is doing and a lot of agencies are doing are trying to, for example, use AI to generate lookalike audiences. We may think we know what they look like, but really it's in the data. And it's in those data points that are powering lookalike audiences that you can find that confidence. So I think for me as a marketer, that's what I'm really excited about, is the future of how we can pull in those data points and generate net new audience profiles based on data, not on a feeling or an instinct.
For me, one of the practical ways I use North, which is like our product that abstracts away a lot of the complexity for these different workflows, is just to create email sequences for different customer profiles. So I'll often have like a first meeting, sort of decide like maybe this isn't an opportunity right away, but I want to put this customer on like a nurture list. I can plug in a few bullet points about sort of what we discussed, this person's background, a couple things they care about, and in an instant have like a draft email sequence of 3 or 4 touches that I rarely will use the first version of that, but I can get that first draft completed, provide a couple points of feedback, and in 2 or 3 cycles, like it takes 5 minutes, I have an email sequence that like I'm ready to hit publish and put live.
It's incredible. I think this is a great segue because I think often when you speak about AI, it can be very lofty and esoteric and like not specific. So I'd love to talk about kind of case studies and tools and tips and tricks that are helping. So I know that Cohere has just announced a partnership with RBC and kind of developing some tools and databases for them. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that as an example that could be used for other enterprises.
Sure. So we partnered with RBC. We announced it early January on building this customized platform called North for Banking, which is aimed to be called our Agent Foundry. So it's a workplace for every employee at RBC eventually to be able to access large language models to accomplish different tasks, but also to be able to build these agents or workflows to accomplish aspects of their jobs. What's of course really important for RBC, with any Canadian bank, there's a lot of governance and approval challenges when it comes to implementing any AI solution. And so what was really important to them is that they had something that was private and secure by default. So it's deployed in their own tenancy. None of the data is flowing to Cohere or any other third party. They can access the models and the technology entirely within their own IT boundaries, but at the same time have access to the experts that have built these models from the ground up, really understand how to get the most out of them for different domain areas and use cases, and be able to customize them in a way that really meets RBC's needs. So really excited about that partnership.
Very cool. I find it really interesting whenever I speak to people about this topic. They often have an aha moment that they would like to tell you about, right? And it's like, oh, like, hey, I did this thing for me. It was so cool, right? So I have one. Recently, I went on holidays, and when I got back, and 500 emails, and there was a specific topic that I wanted to know what I missed, right? So ask the internal AI engine we have, please summarize all communication and all materials related to this topic, any actions that were taken, any actions for me, right? So I didn't have to go through it all. 15 seconds. It was incredible, right? I got like a full summary of everything that I missed while I was away so that I can action those tasks, could follow up with anyone who had actions that they'd completed. And I was like, this is such an incredible. So are there any aha moments that you have experienced in your time learning about this space that would be interesting to share?
So we have also an internal tool that we've built, an all-in-one system for our marketing. But what feeds into it is a company that has synthetic data. And they've built a synthetic model of Canada and a synthetic model of the US. And the aha for me was, when I think of all our clients, they might have 5, 10, or 15 data points around their customers. But with synthetic data, we have 50,000 data points around each individual. And so when you think about the quality jump that you take, and you need that quality if you're going to jump into we're all going to get into predictive modeling in terms of the work that we do. And that jump in quality shocked me, just in terms of most companies are really thin on how much they know about their customers.
They think they know.
And this is one of the fastest ways to augment that so that it is actually more valuable for the future.
Very interesting. How about you, Chloe?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it has actually been in multilingual. Spoiler alert, I'm bilingual, so maybe I'm biased. But the way our models are built at Cohere anyways, it's really not about translating anymore. It's about localizing. And you can imagine that if you're searching something around a 401k in the US, it doesn't translate in Canada, it doesn't translate in Germany. Or if your customers are asking about that broadly in different languages. So with multilingual, you're able to, for example, look at the whole corpus of every single customer ticket you've ever had and summarize it for your product teams to know what are the priority things that aren't working that they need to work on. So you don't need to do it at a regional level. You could do it at a global level. And same thing just for startups or medium-sized businesses, the extent to which they can go global with local marketing, because I think that's often on our minds as well, not just translating, but making sure we're resonating with the local terms semantically. I think it's just such a huge unlock and so powerful. And making it a more meaningful experience for the local customers, I think, is what we're all trying to do too.
Very cool. So I think I speak on behalf of all of you. I'm also on my journey to learn more about AI and continuous learning here. Any advice you would have for folks in the room of how to start? We're all at probably different levels of understanding and experience and expertise within the space. If you're starting out or wanting to learn more, how would you go about doing so?
So first I'll compare to the start of the digital era 25 years ago, where you actually were able to build something and prototype it. Now we're in an era where you can really build amazing prototypes. And what I love about the prototyping is you lower your risk, you build a small version of the thing, and instead of talking about it, everyone sort of picks it up and does it. And that has made a big difference in terms of explaining something to clients, but it also works internally where everyone has the aha moment themselves without having to get all the logical and reasonable explanations behind it. So prototyping in this era is one of the fastest ways to get people on board.
So I would just encourage people to get hands-on and try things out. Like the whole promise of large language models is to make natural language, be sort of the default interface for interacting with computer systems. So you shouldn't be, if we're doing our jobs well, you shouldn't need to be able to code to be able to build things. You should be able to, in plain language, describe what you want the system to do, and if it needs to generate code in order to build a wireframe or an app or something like that, to write that code for you. And so the barrier to entry to building something useful with this technology has gotten lower and lower and lower. And so it just involves kind of taking that small step to try stuff out, and you'll, I think, if you haven't interacted with these systems before, very quickly see how low the bar is to really be able to achieve something pretty incredible, and how quickly you can iterate and improve once you've taken that initial first step.
Very cool. I'm going to move into kind of apps and final use cases. We're at SPP starting to kind of explore and ideate around how do we do logo drops and how do we design products using AI and how do we text to image type of applications. Are there any apps that you use on a regular basis or kind of use cases that you're like, this is something cool that you might want to try? No?
Well, I think the image generators are really impressive as a marketer, especially to the extent that you can apply your own brand to it. I will be honest, it's not there yet. I think it's still got a ways to go. But as far as actually, I'm maybe a bit dorky, but I'm one of those people who always comment product feedback and send questions. And because I just know product people on the other side are listening. So the extent to which you can imagine being able to give it a prompt and say, create my image backdrop for our event at GTC next week, it would be able to do that for you. And then just being able, the human in the loop, to edit it and make sure it's on brand, I think is just going to unlock so much for marketers.
Yeah, and be like the inspiration, right? The text to image can sometimes be the inspiration for the next, as opposed to, I'm going to actually design this.
I have a use case.
Love it.
So when an RFP arrives, and there's this semi-organized process that we've done for 10 years, to people running around gathering all the information, and one of the tools that we are prototyping, basically when the RFP arrives, breaks out all the aspects of how to solve the problem into research buckets. And instead of someone taking a week to do it, we have it in less than a day. And once we have those research buckets, it's so much faster to brief all the teams, and we have more knowledge at our fingertips, which by saving all that time at the front end, we end up with more time to actually work on the proposal, and then more time for the rehearsals, which is, you need more of that rehearsal time sometimes on those big projects. So immediately practical, and it affects our measure of success on win rate and growth rate.
And increases the output of your team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we have a few more minutes here for everyone. I think, for all of us, going back out into our organizations and advocating for more AI use, right? To have it more integrated within your organization. I'd love to open the floor maybe for some advice on how you would recommend that these folks, when they go back to their organizations, advocate for AI or AI tools or agents, et cetera, to be more integrated into the day-to-day.
Well, I have a feeling these two are more technical than I am. So my advice is to partner with someone technical at your company. I don't expect, if you're a marketer, for you to be able to do it on your own. I do think, emails was a great place to start. So I agree completely with their advice. Start with something really small where you find an advantage in your day-to-day business. But if there's something larger for your department, break down that use case into a problem that would unlock value for your whole company and formulate it in a brief, like we've done so many times in our campaigns, and work with someone technical. There's advocates 100% at your company who are excited about this, and on the data side who can help you figure out how to leverage it. And so typically you're not alone, and just work with someone who can understand the technical side to make things happen for you.
I think one thing that many folks haven't really had the chance to experience yet, if you've only interacted with this technology in a consumer context, like use ChatGPT or something like that, like how much more powerful it is when it has access to your own intelligence, your own knowledge, your own files and things. And so like Cohere, because we focus on enterprise, that's a big part of the value we offer, is building the connectors to these different data sources like SharePoint, OneDrive, Gmail, Slack, Salesforce, like anywhere you have information that is going to be important for the model to know or have access to in order to do your job well. That's where we focus a lot, but also doing so in a way that is private and secure, so your employer is not worried about data loss risk and you sort of leaking trade secrets by sending some of these prompts to these different services. So I think like sort of that mapping of like, how do I spend my time? What different data sources do I interact with? And how can I get connected to them with tools so that I can start bringing efficiencies to these different areas where I spend my time? That's a big area that can provide value when your technology team is thinking about like what tools to actually implement.
Very cool. Probably my last question, unless I come up with another one in real time, is around effectiveness, right? Like, how do you measure the ROI after you implement sort of some of these things? We're all, a lot of us are in marketing. ROI, effectiveness, allocation of limited resources, and what you get out of it is so important to what we do. How do you measure when you're pitching enterprise or small businesses, or when you're doing marketing? How do you measure the effectiveness of some of these tools that are being implemented?
So in a digital era where everything can be measured, there's sometimes measurement is done too quickly. And we're in an era where so many things are evolving that I think we need to take a longer view in our measurement. Not everything's going to be, we sort of got into that short habit of impressions and digital marketing and how did we do yesterday. I think we have to pull back and say your teams are actually going to learn to work differently over time. And let's start to take a longer view in where and how we check the effectiveness of what we're building.
I think one area where the thinking has kind of changed among large enterprises, which tend to be a little bit more resistant to change, is it's like very clear now that there is no option to do nothing because your employees are already using these tools in the consumer context, and if you don't provide some mechanism for them to access them in their professional lives, like in a way that is sanctioned and secure, they're just going to go off on their phone and like pump in their prompts and do it that way. So there really is an imperative to have kind of like a secure, maybe not super centralized, but at least organized approach to like how your company is going to approach using these technologies. And when you think about sort of the three areas of ROI, there's either cost savings, there's revenue generation, or there's reduction in risk. Like reduction in risk is a really big component of it. On the cost saving side, certainly think like driving efficiencies, just freeing up people's time and giving them more of their calendar back to tackle higher bandwidth tasks, which in many cases we have seen allows them to contribute another 4 or 6 or 8 hours a week to tasks that are revenue generating. So maybe it's a little bit like indirect in that way, but we've seen that with like many of our customers.
So interesting. That's where it resonated most with me, is I was like, I'm so overwhelmed with my job. There's so much going on. How can I leverage AI in order to try to give myself more time back so that I can do the things that I really am passionate about doing? And so that's what I'm interested in kind of learning more about. And I think I'll kind of end a little bit with this, and our panelists were gracious enough to kind of offer some of their time afterwards. So we're going to kind of end it, and then if you have any questions, kind of feel free to come up and you can chat individually with them. But the world is moving in this direction, right? Like the train has left the station. We're on this path. And your colleagues, your new hires are going to come in. Your competitive organizations that are competing in your space are going to do this. And if you don't focus on it, right, someone else will, right? I forget, maybe it was Claude who mentioned this to me earlier, and she said, we're not going to be replaced by AI. Most of our roles, right, there's going to be a human interaction, a human kind of catalyst to complete it. But it's going to be really difficult to compete against someone else who uses AI, because they're going to be able to expand their ability to impact in their role. So thank you very much for joining today. It's a fun and exciting topic. And yeah, we're having panelists here to have some chat. So appreciate your time.